Welcome to The Curve Weekly, the podcast that keeps you up to date with all of the money, business and stock market tea.
Brought to you by the Curve's research team. It's the latest insights on what's happening in the stock market, companies, other money-related news so that you can stay educated and ahead of the curve.
You can thank us later for sounding smarter than those finance bros at your next dinner party.
I'm so proud of myself, Vic. Do you know what I did this morning?
Got a flat white instead of an oat flat white?
No, that was an accident. They accidentally gave me the wrong one. But
My new coffee order, sorry, we'll get to you in a second, is Americano with matcha.
What the hell? What is an Americano, like a long black?
Yeah.
With milk, but then they also put matcha in.
And it's just a matcha with hot water, but a little bit of oat milk on the top.
Why would you pay for that? You can just literally shove a bit of matcha, crunch it up in a bowl with a tiny bit of water and put it in.
You could do that with instant coffee too.
No, but my point is they literally just use packet matcha in a cafe. So you may as well just do that at home. Whereas in a cafe, you're paying for much better quality coffee.
You can make your own coffee.
I
do you
think the
buy it?
bigger problem here is that a watery matcha is disgusting.
It's not. It's like a matcha tea. It's just
God. Okay, well, back to me. I am really proud of myself. This week I went to the supermarket on Sunday and got things like eggs, little sprout things, trying to get my veggie count up and also not just buying things because I'm being lazy and, busy and not buying or making my own food. Anyway, firstly, I've got my way through all of the things I bought, so I don't have any wastage. And secondly, my massive thing was this morning, I went to get my oat flat white. I thought before I left the house, I'm starving and I want one of their delicious croissants. But instead I thought, no, you spent money on eggs. I boiled some eggs and I ate them before, and then I wasn't hungry when I got to the cafe. And I find when I go to a cafe hungry, it is so hard to tell myself not to buy a treat.
It's like going to the supermarket hungover.
Oh.
I used to do that at uni all the time.
It's kind of fun, isn't it? Leaning into it though.
And then we'd drink the chocolate milk and we'd eat the bread. We'd eat the bread on the way while we're doing the shop. And then I remember we were doing the flat shop and we got to the till and we were like, oh, here's an empty packet of bread because we'd eaten it. Here's half drunk milk. And they found it funny. But then we went to put through the actual food for the week and we didn't have enough money. So we had to go back to the flat with this empty plastic bag and half drunk milk and stuff. And we were like, sorry, we got really hungry at the supermarket.
Did you used to do you would all put money into an account and then just pay for it that way?
Yeah.
I'd be so annoyed if you came home and had spent our shared collective grocery money on your hungover snacks.
Well, technically we bought the stuff. We just ate it really quickly.
So mean.
I know. Lesson of the day, kids, don't go to the supermarket hungover. Even better, don't drink. Don't get hungover.
Oh my God, I'm not going to go on about it right now.
Oh my.
But my non-alcoholic weekends, I'm so smug about. Last weekend? I absolutely had a blowout and I hated myself on Sunday and I thought, no, we're not doing that anymore. Anyway, do you know what's actually so embarrassing? So we've had someone new move into our house.
Oh, yeah.
I mentioned something about how I wanted to buy a house. He said he's tuned in for about 4 episodes.
Nice.
And he said, I have heard you talking about this house situation 6 months ago. Please tell me you're not still talking about it. And I was like,
You're like, good things take time, buddy.
Wow, I really am annoying.
Don't let that pressure you. You know? It's the biggest purchase probably you'll ever make in your life. And if it takes you 6 months or 6 years, so be it.
Thank you.
Mr. Flatmate.
I was more thinking about the fact that I obviously go on and on about things like no drinking alcohol. Anyway, over here in the UK.
When you're pregnant.
Oh God, it's taking so long to get into this. What?
When you're pregnant, it's going to be so obvious because you'll be like, I haven't drunk. It's been 9 months now. And I'll be like, sorry.
Can we move on?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry.
So the UK budget has just come out. And so lots of people will be listening either not in the UK, in New Zealand, Australia, other parts of the world. We're going to make this relevant for everyone because it's a really good example of how you can understand how budgets actually work for countries.
Yeah.
This has been such an unlock for me because embarrassingly, I haven't paid enough attention to the budget. So when people talk about it, I don't really get excited because I don't understand what's going on. And that this tiny shift of perspective and that it's all of our money being pulled together and the government's deciding how to spend it, that might sound really obvious to a lot of people, but it wasn't for me. So
it's just like your own personal budget as well. It's like the government's budget. It gets money from taxes and then it has to spend money on public things like parks and healthcare and welfare and all of that. So it's trying to balance that, like incomings and outgoings. And sometimes you get governments in that are like, woohoo, we're going to spend. And then you get others that come in and go, oh gosh, now we have to increase the revenue by doing that through taxes. When we pay taxes, that essentially goes into the budget pool and then the government decides what we're going to spend that on.
Yes. And so with this particular budget, the reason we wanted to highlight it, we put some stuff on socials as well, but
it's very special.
It's the first woman that's made a budget for the UK in 1,000 years.
Ever. So the first female chancellor, which means someone that manages the money of the country ever in the UK. That's a big step for women.
Gosh, that's cool.
Yeah. I'm also like, why did it take so long? But, you know, no negativity. We got here and that's amazing.
Exactly. But also it doesn't surprise me how much absolute shit we get for being bad at budgeting if we've never had a public figure set a country's budget
or
in the
never
UK.
Thought that we could be responsible enough to be in charge of a country's money.
So this is a huge win, and we wanted to use some of the things that have come out of this particular budget and explain it in a way that makes sense regardless of where you are, so that when your country is doing its budget, you understand the different levers that are being pulled.
It's special for a number of other reasons, because a female delivered it and owns it. Secondly, it's special because it's the first budget in 15 years delivered by a Labour government. So we've had a Conservative Party in the UK for many, many years, and then now we've got a Labour government. So they've got different agendas and different policies and things they focus on.
Do you know what I find interesting is how many people I hear lean on the idea that Labour or left-wing parties don't know what they're doing when it comes to money.
One's more socialist, so they're like, let's give the lower income people more money and let's tax the wealthy, and that's exactly what Labour's done in this budget. This is why it's really important to vote as well in elections, because whatever party it's in could set a budget that actually impacts you directly. But it's also special because it is the biggest budget in a generation. And by that, I mean it is the biggest increase in taxes that the UK has seen since the war.
What?
Yeah. We're here to enjoy it.
I'm like, that's not great. Isn't that not good?
So there's a $40 billion pound increase in taxes. And to put that in perspective, the whole amount of tax revenue that New Zealand gets is about the same amount.
So the amount that has been increased in the UK is the total pool of money that New Zealand works with.
Yeah.
Lots of us are going to have like giant salary slashes. Is that kind of thing?
Yeah, pretty much.
When does it start? I need to make the most of my income.
It's kind of staged increases depending on what thing we're talking about. They do give people a bit of time so that like accountants and lawyers.
How generous of them.
The preface of this is also that during COVID, which was only kind of 4 years ago, there was massive payouts pretty much all over the world. You know, people lost their jobs, they couldn't, businesses couldn't make money. And so governments were paying out whatever you want to call it, furlough payments or like subsidies, one-off payments, you know, all of that to help people get through. That now has to be made up.
We just print money.
Yeah, just print money. That's so good.
I still genuinely don't understand why that's not a good idea.
I mean, you could secretly print money for
that's
yourself.
What I mean. Can we just print a little bit?
Not the whole country, just me.
Oh, no. I mean, can't we just get a little bit more out there?
Yeah.
We'll talk about that another time. I know that's not a thing.
That's a whole economics conversation. Yeah. But no, the key takeaways that are probably most relevant to our audience is they're raising the minimum wage. This is good. There's been inflation, you know, the minimum wage hasn't been raised for a very long time. So it's going to increase from about £11.44 to £12.21. So it's about a 7% increase. Remember, inflation's been anywhere from around 9%. So a 7% increase is pretty good.
Okay, so the New Zealand minimum wage is around $21. Australia is about 23, and then what's the pound? Now it's going to be this. What's that in New Zealand dollars? Probably pretty similar.
24.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So minimum wage, you actually earn a little bit more in the UK.
Yeah. So if you're a full-time worker over 21, it's an extra £1,400 a year, which is helpful.
Makes me feel good. I like hearing that.
I was on minimum wage my first job, and I'm pretty sure it was like $6 or $7 an hour.
Oh, this is in Cafe.
Yeah.
Cafe.
I remember asking for a 50 cent pay increase, and I was so nervous. Like, anyone would have thought I was asking for like double my salary.
Good on you, by the way. How old were you?
About 14.
That's bold. Yeah. I'm impressed by that.
My mum made me do it.
What was your case? Like, what were you doing that was worth 50 cents more?
I think I would have done it like 5 minutes before my shift ended, you know?
Oh, always. You definitely would. You always do that. You wait to have some important chat until literally you have a time limit.
I know. Oh, gosh.
This is actually something that's really worth knowing. If you don't know what tax bracket you're in, regardless of where you are in the world, you can Google that, right? You can say, what is the tax brackets for UK, New Zealand, Australia, whatever.
And what it's called is a progressive tax rate, which means the more you earn, the more you pay, and you only pay it on the increase in that amount.
Let's just use the UK as an example. So if you're between around £12,000 to around £50,000, on that amount you're taxed 20%.
Yeah.
But anything above that, up from £50,000 to
125,000,
you're taxed at 40% for that amount.
But one thing to remember with tax bands is that if you're going and asking your employer for a salary increase because of inflation or because you've had a promotion or anything like that, just be aware if that tips you over, say you were on 50,000 and you've increased it to 60,000.
Or even 52. Imagine if you just tipped over.
Yeah, then it might actually impact you more negatively than you think. So maybe a bit of homework for anyone listening. So
I think actually regardless of where you are in the world, because this is super important to understand.
Yes, yeah, is to go and check what salary band your salary falls into.
Yeah.
Also, a little tip on this is if you were asking for, no, this is like tax evasion, actually, don't worry.
Can you tell us what you were going to say?
I mean, it's not tax evasion. It's like, I think it's quite genius.
What?
But like if I went to my employer and I was earning 50K and I still wanted to stay in that salary band, I could ask...
A bonus?
No, I could ask for like perks that aren't monetary.
Oh, that's quite clever.
Like, hey, can you pay for my car park? Or hey, can you pay for my gym membership? Or hey, you know.
Genius. That's not naughty. I think that's just been clever.
Yeah. Please don't come after me. Another thing quickly, another takeaway from the budget is that there's going to be a big increase. This is probably one of the biggest increases in national insurance contribution. So this is state pension. So this is what companies pay, the state pension. Anyway, don't really need to know about the mechanics, but one thing to remember.
Wait, what is it though? What is the state pension?
We contribute to our own pension,
yeah.
And then there's businesses contribute to a state, like a country pension. So it's pretty much an increased tax for businesses, but a lot of people have
Do we have to pay that?
The curve?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So a lot of people have been going, this is quite sneaky from the government, because if we take the curve, for example, us having to increase wages for our staff because we now have to pay more per person to a state pension fund now means we make less profit. So therefore, the way to get around that is we increase prices to our customers.
So actually, it ends up really being massively detrimental on customers and consumers, even though like we have to pay more, the way we get around that. So let's use like
when we spoke about the election episode.
If you haven't listened to that, by the way.
It's Raising the Curve episode
139, breaking down the US election.
And in that, we spoke about how the different policies with Kamala Harris and Donald Trump and how they are, some are increasing corporate tax, some are decreasing. But at the end of the day, we end up paying that corporate tax as customers, as people.
So this is, okay, as an example, talking about this, let's just say.
Coffee.
Okay, coffee. Coffee.
Pophams now.
Pophams, for anyone that doesn't know, is my favourite cafe in London.
They now have to contribute maybe a 5% increase in terms of expenses for this national insurance contribution that's increased.
This coffee is now going to cost me more.
Yeah.
Because they have to pass that on somewhere.
They have to make it up somewhere else, yeah.
Oh, that's sneaky.
So while you're going, oh, this is companies paying tax, and this is an increase in business tax, doesn't relate to me. It does.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Annoying.
So just remember that whenever you hear about corporate tax, business tax.
It does affect you?
It does affect you. It does. Lastly, another really interesting one is the increase in capital gains tax. Now, for any of you who don't know what that is tax that you pay on the increase in profit that you make from an investment.
So, wherever you are in the world, if you invest in something, whether it's a house, stocks, jewelry, anything that is going to increase in value, that's like a capital's gain, right? Like the amount that is valued at is increased.
So if you buy something for $100 and you sell it for $120, your capital gains that you pay tax on is that $20. In New Zealand, we don't have capital gains tax.
Why have we moved to London?
That's why the property market goes bananas.
Do you think that would ever change?
Well, this is the thing. It's really hard for government to come out, vote for me. I'm going to introduce capital gains.
Everyone's like, absolutely not.
We're literally one of the only countries in the world that doesn't have capital gains. So I think there's got to be a point.
Oh, touch wood, touch my head. Let's not.
Anyway, in the UK.
Touch the wood, Vic. I'm serious. This is important.
Anyway, in the UK.
No, she's ignoring me.
Increased from 10% to 20%. And it
That's
applies.
huge.
Yeah, so it's doubled.
So let's just say you sell a stock, you hold something and you sell it, and you've made profit of £100.
Yes, yep.
You before would have been taxed 10%, so £10. Now that's £20.
Yes. So this is why ISAs, which is an investment savings account in the UK, are so good, because you get £20,000 a year tax free. So if you're in
I never understood this until right now.
So if you're in the UK and you're investing and you're not using an ISA, start using an ISA, because you'll be paying capital gains tax if you're not.
And that's huge. That could be a lot of money.
Yeah, especially if you make a lot of money on your investments. Yeah, you want to keep that.
I want to talk about Donald Trump. Oh. I know, but I just really quickly, I don't want to give him too much airtime, but the fact that he went on Joe Rogan, the podcast.
Sorry.
How many, 14 million people listen to that? Like, do we think?
34 million.
What?
Yeah.
Shit. Oh my God, it's had 34 million views in 3 days. Is that a good thing? Because I'm so conflicted between giving someone airtime and the giant audience that will provide for him, or if that's actually going, people are going to see that and be really illuminated with what he says in terms of, oh my gosh, absolutely not.
I think it's the former.
Oh God.
I think the Trump media is quite interesting.
Okay.
So Trump has his own company called Trump Media, and it owns his social media platform. It has been an absolute dog in terms of performance. It's a publicly listed company.
Absolute dog.
Sorry.
As in it's been doing badly.
It's been absolutely terrible, yeah. But this last month, it has taken off like a meme stock. Like, it has gone bananas. And everyone's like, well, markets don't lie. He's going to get in. Markets are forward looking. They're rational, all of that. He's going to get in. And then Bitcoin as well has just reached new highs. So, and he's pro cryptocurrency. So everyone's like, well, if you look at that, he's winning. I mean, that might have changed by the time we release this podcast, but fingers crossed. Anyway, not going to tell anyone about my political views.
Vic, yes. I'd love for you to tell everyone about what's happening with Reddit, because when this listed as a public company, I was really hooked on the way that they did it. I thought it was so clever. They crowdfunded. So basically anyone that used Reddit got the chance to buy in and support this company as it transitioned from being a private to a public company.
Which they have 100 million daily active users. So that's a big pool of investors to offer shares to. But yes, it listed only in March this year on the New York Stock Exchange. So it hasn't been listed that long. And it produced a financial result. So we're in the middle of earnings season. So lots of companies are reporting results. And Reddit's result was the first time it had made a profit.
Which is so quick.
Yeah.
The fact that it's listed and it's public and it's already made a profit is huge.
Yeah, and investors thought so too. Shares were up 40%.
Wow.
Yeah, it's done really, really well.
Honestly, when it first listed and when it was kind of that crowdfund approach, for some reason I felt like it would do kind of similar to Allbirds. There would be all this hype. Heaps of people would buy into it, and then it maybe like the reality of the business and how it was functioning might not translate to actually a profitable business, but the fact that it has is kind of cool.
It's interesting though, like these platforms like Netflix that has nearly 300 million users, and Spotify that has, over 200 million users and doesn't have the same impact on the share price. I don't know why that is.
It's almost like, this is such a lame way to put it, but the whole power to the people thing, because there's so many people that rely on that for really genuine, straight up information, because it's not filtered by a massive media company. I think that it's got such a community And that kind of makes sense to me.
Everyone wants to see it as success.
Yeah.
And lastly, do you remember Hubba Bubba?
Oh my God, I used to shove about 6 pieces in my mouth.
Same, and it was like they were massive, just pure sugar.
Imagine how much sugar was in them, because your saliva ducts would just go through. Remember, you'd put it in, and for the first 3 minutes, it was a flavour explosion, and then you were chewing on plastic.
Like, I just feel like my poor parents, like the amount of sugar highs I must have had, and then been an absolute brat of a child.
But why do I still do that as an adult? Like, I still will hoon half a block of chocolate, do the exact same thing. Like, I haven't learned.
Crash.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the reason I'm mentioning Hubba Bubba is that Mars, the confectionery company that owns M&M's, Skittles, Bounty, they're actually on Wrigley's as well. Yeah, they have acquired Kellogg's, which is no longer called Kellogg's, it's called Kellanova, but
trying to make it sound real. It's like Casanova.
And I can just imagine the millions of dollars that would have been spent on that.
Yeah,
and someone's coming in with a pitch deck. Let's call it Kellanova. And everyone's like, anyway, they've acquired Kellogg's for about $40 billion. So this is one of the biggest deals in the kind of confectionery snacking landscape. But Mars is actually a private company. It's been family run, but it now generates about $50 billion in revenue. So it's massive. Billion.
God, it's a lot of money.
Yeah. Oh my God, I have to finish on this. It was in our Curve Weekly newsletter, but
I'm loving how much you're flogging the newsletter. She does put a lot of time and energy.
And it's like, when I sit down to write the newsletter, it's like, what child do I love more? The podcast or the newsletter?
It so is.
Because when I get a really juicy piece of news and I put it in the newsletter, I feel sorry for the podcast. And then if I put it in the podcast, I feel sorry for the newsletter. But then I don't want people to like that read the newsletter be like, oh, well, I won't listen to the podcast. Anyway, so it's a real mind boggle on a Thursday.
Just so you know, Vic, I'm going to do you a real solid plug here. Anyone that listens to this podcast, sign up to our newsletter. I'm going to put the link in the podcast show notes, because honestly, it is true what she says. She makes so much effort to make sure there's good content in both. So just make sure you're signed up and you get it.
And I love both my children. I love equally. But yes, in the newsletter, speaking of large amounts of money, Russia has fined Google 20 decillion, which is 20 billion trillion dollars. Google banned certain YouTube channels in Russia, and Russia's like, this is unacceptable. We want to be able to broadcast in Russia on your platforms. So we've fined you more than the entire global economy. It's 36 zeros.
No. 2 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0. So that's only halfway through. I'm not going to lie to, but that is actually outrageous.
Yeah, it's so good.
Who would have done that?
When asked about the lawsuit during a call with reporters on Thursday, the Kremlin spokesperson admitted that he can't even pronounce this figure. And CNN has contacted Google for a comment. And in its quarterly earnings published this week, which were amazing, by the way, the company referred to its ongoing legal matters in Russia.
That's so funny.
Anyway.
Imagine when they got that serving, being like, you have to pay 20 decillion or whatever it's called. Surely they would have started laughing.
Imagine the interest on that. That is if you didn't pay it.
But also, what's the likelihood that gets through? Surely.
No, yeah. I think it's just more of like a bit of an ego, big dick contest. I mean, it would have made sense if they just fined them a Google.
Which is?
Way more than a decillion.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. I mean, that would be quite ironic.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I thought Google was less. Oh, God. Okay, how many zeros are in a Google?
100. So they've been fined 36 zeros.
Honestly, it's so stupid.
And, I mean, they should have just fined them a Google 100 zeros. That would have been very symbolic.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, we'll leave you on that little bit of fun news for your day.
We're going to answer some questions that came in from the community, but I think we just have talked for way too long.
Yeah.
But if you do have any, please send them through. We're collating all of them so that we can make sure we answer some of them at the end of each Curve Weekly. Whether that's on like where you listen to your podcast or on Instagram, email, whatever works. We've got a big, amazing filing system these days.
Amazing. Copy paste.
Copy paste, copy paste. Okay, have a good week, everyone.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening to The Curve Weekly. Make sure you hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with all the money, biz and stock market news. And if you like what you heard, we would love a review. Thank you.
Yes, we would love a review. But if you did hate it, please, don't leave one if you hate it. No, but in all seriousness, could you please leave a review? Because it really helps other people find our cute little podcast.
And we hope you have a good week and see you next Monday.
Bye.
Bye. Sweet. Nice. Yeah. See you next Tuesday. Lol. See you next Tuesday. I mean Monday.
No, actually, though. New episodes out every Tuesday.